world is watching, and that is the Hamas conflict that is taking place in multiple parts of Israel. It's day 6 of the bombardment, and that is only escalating. Over 3,000 lives have been lost on both sides. There are many civilians that have been caught in the crossfire as well. Destruction, the trail of devastation is witnessed across Israel, across the Gaza Strip as well. In fact, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, has now come out and said that there is an ISIS link perhaps as well to this entire Hamas terror group and the Hamas terror attack, because the IDF claims that ISIS flags were noticed, ISIS flags were put up when the Hamas terror group attacked certain parts of Israel. Listen in to what Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, had to say about how these crimes that have been committed by the Hamas terror group are even worse than ISIS.
Joe, I want to give you a clear picture of the difficult situation we face. We were struck Saturday by an attack whose savagery I can say we have not seen since the Holocaust. I mean, we had hundreds massacred, families wiped out in their beds in their homes, women brutally raped and murdered, over 100 kidnapped, including children. And since we last spoke, the extent of this evil, it's only gotten worse. They took dozens of children, bound them up, burned them, and executed them. They beheaded soldiers. They mowed down these youngsters who came to a nature festival and just like put 5 jeeps around a depression in the soil, and like Babi Yar, they mowed them down, making sure that they killed everybody. We've never seen such savagery in the history of the state, and they're even worse than ISIS. They're even worse than ISIS, and we need to treat them as such.
Read this weekend in synagogue, the Torah teaches us that God made stars to, quote, give light on the earth and separate light from darkness. Give light on the earth and separate light from darkness. It's been hard to find that light during the darkness of these past few days. When terrorist groups like Hamas brought not only terror but sheer evil to the world, evil that echoes the worst and matches, in some cases exceeds the worst atrocities of ISIS. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered in Israel.
It seems like the conflict is spilling over to neighboring countries as well. We're now learning of airstrikes that have been reported from near the Damascus airport in Syria. That's the latest that we are gathering. We had reports coming in earlier that were not corroborated as far as strikes from Lebanon goes. But now we're given to understand that there are reported airstrikes that have been reported in parts of Syria as well, Damascus airport being one of them. So is this war, is this conflict now spilling over to the other neighboring countries in West Asia? Could this have a bigger impact? That's really the question that many analysts are also wondering about. An answer imperative to the peace in that particular region, in the West Asia region, and of course for the world. Abhishek, my colleague, now joining us live from near the Gaza Strip. He's in the midst of the conflict zone there. Abhishek, what's the latest that you can tell us as far as the situation there is concerned? It's day 6 and we are learning that the bombardment, the airstrikes continue unabated.
Well, the airstrikes from both the sides continues to be unabated. Only thing is that Israeli airstrikes are very precise and very massive in terms of demolition on the Gaza Strip. Most of the Hamas militant hideouts, their headquarters, people, the homes where they used to hide, most of these have been demolished by Israeli airstrike. Hamas, meanwhile, continues to fire rockets from the other side of the border. And if I could show you, it's not very far from where I'm standing. You can see the barren land space that is about 2 kilometers, and on the other side is the Gaza Strip, where most of the militants are located. The firings of rockets are happening. From where I'm standing, about 300 meters about, there is a deployment by Israeli forces, which is continuously targeting Gaza side. The firing of officer tanks, you could see over continuously going on. on the roads stretching along the kilometers. We could see hundreds of sharp nails or empty cartridges. Those that is the kind of story that how fierce the battle has been going on in the last 3 4 days. And this situation, it seems, will continue to go on for a few more days because the counteroffensive will not stop until and unless the goal is achieved by the Israeli government, and that is to eliminate every single Hamas terrorist. That is the kind of vow that Israeli government this time has taken, and this is happening under very tremendous political pressure and tremendous pressure from the people also who have started questioning Prime Minister Netanyahu, who have started questioning his policies, his nationalism, and amidst all this chaos, he has also formed a unity government which is going to decide for the future course of action related to war. So internally, it is very revolting time in Israel, and people are very concerned. Initially, of course, the concern was to evacuate as many people possible. But now, when the sadness is going down, their anger and their frustration is coming up. That how could they be so defenseless? How could the state machinery could not protect them? And what is going to be the kind of revenge that the Israel will take to ensure that no such occurrence happens in future?
Absolutely. Lessons to be learned, not just for Israel, for the region, but for the world as well. Intelligence failure and the questions around it will be asked, and they are being asked. But at the moment, the focus as far as Israel is concerned is to ensure that all those who are caught in the crossfire, the civilians, are brought out to safety. Remember, several hostages were taken, not just Israeli nationals, but even foreign nationals that have been taken hostage by Hamas. And Abhishek, Israel and the government has made it very, very clear that until those hostages are freed, until Hamas ensures the safety of every single person that's in their captivity, there are going to be no concessions made as far as the Gaza Strip is concerned. Electricity is going to be cut off, power is going to be cut off, gas lines, food are all going to be cut off until Hamas ensures the safety of every single hostage that they've taken.
Well, that is being the kind of stand from both the sides. While the world leaders, some of them have talked about peace process or kind of bringing down the tension or not resorting to too much of violence to both the sides. It doesn't look like the sides are interested in having any conversation. We have had Prime Minister Netanyahu's comment that he is vowed to eliminate entire network of Hamas, and he has said that the action will be such that the generations will reverberate onto that. Also, from Hamas side, they have said that any file of negotiations with Israel will be open only when they'll be able to completely wipe them out. So this is the kind of rhetorical commentary that is coming from both the sides, but that explains why there is no way that any peace negotiations can happen right now. And the offensive, the counteroffensive, which now Israeli forces will have, they will have superiority in terms of being well planned, being well trained, and being well supplied and well supported by international communities. Also, we have seen US President's emissary, in a way, Secretary Blinken was here in Tel Aviv today. Yesterday, it was UK Foreign Minister James Cleverly who was meeting senior officials in Israel. So it is a kind of concerted effort that is being provided to Israel in order to have all the way it wants to ensure to have its the way it wants to have the counteroffensive, both in terms of intelligence input, financial aid, weaponry, naval assets to deter any involvement or the backing of Hamas. So this is the entire game is being very well backed by the European Union or NATO allies in favor of Israel. And now it looks like Hamas will be not in a position to defend itself for a very long time. It's just a matter of days that Israel will launch its counteroffensive, and we'll have to see how many, how does it unfold without not having too much of civilian casualty that one can only, think about.
Right, the ground offensive by Israel is only getting started is what they're claiming. Abhishek, do stay on with me because the world stands, at least most of the world, most of the Western powers stand with Israel. That sign was very, very clear when we had James Cleverly of United Kingdom yesterday in Israel. Today, we had the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken as well. In fact, Anthony Blinken and Benjamin Netanyahu just a short while ago addressed the media. The support of the United Kingdom and the United States is with Israel. It's an unequivocal support and a condemnation of terror group and the terror act by Hamas is very, very clear. Let's listen in to some of those reactions.
Prime Minister, I understand on a personal level the harrowing echoes that Hamas's massacres carry for Israeli Jews, indeed for Jews everywhere. I also come before you as a husband and father of young children. It's impossible for me to look at the photos of families killed, such as the mother, father, and 3 small children murdered as they sheltered in their home in kibbutz near Oz, and not think of my own children. This was just one of Hamas's countless acts of terror. In a litany of brutality and inhumanity that, yes, brings to mind the worst of ISIS.
What we saw on Saturday was an unprecedented event, even in the turbulent history that Israel has experienced. A mass terrorist atrocity that we know has taken the lives of over 1,000 people, many more injured. I was here predominantly to show solidarity to the Israeli people, to provide support to the Israeli government, and also to make sure that through Israel's response, they know that the UK will continue working to try and ensure peace in the region, prevent an escalation, particularly in the north and the east of this country, and of course also to look at how we support British nationals here in Israel through these very, very difficult times.
We've seen the kind of support that has poured in for Israel against this terror attack by Hamas over the weekend, and the airstrikes and bombardment that continues even today. India's stand has been very, very clear as well. And now what we're learning from our sources within the government is that it is an unconditional support to Israel against terror attack. It should not be seen in any other sense. That's really what we're learning from our sources within the government. Let's take you across to what exactly we've gathered from our sources within the government here. This is what a top government source has revealed to us here on CNN News 18, that India has condemned this terror attack. India condemns terror in all its forms and all its manifestations. That is very, very clear. The Prime Minister's statement as far as calling out this terror is very clear just about this particular attack. It is not against any religion, is also what we're now learning. We're not talking about any bilateral issue at the moment. We're not talking about Palestine or Israel. We're talking about a terror group attacking innocent civilians. That's the stand that the Indian government has taken. The Prime Minister's statement is not against any religion, like I said, is also what the top government source told us. Many Muslim bodies, in fact, have condemned this kind of act, this kind of terror that has been unleashed against innocent civilians. Many in Muslim community in India too have backed the government, like we told you earlier in the day as well. 2 or more bodies, as far as Muslim bodies in the country, have come out and said that they stand with the message that the Prime Minister has sent as far as fighting terror goes. We will educate people on the Israel-Palestine issue is also something that the top government source has now come out and told us. Abhishek, my colleague, continues to be with us here on this broadcast. Now, Abhishek, the government is very clear in its condemnation as far as terror goes. Terror in all its manifestations must be condemned, and that's really what this issue is about. It's not about the 2 states. It's not about recognizing one over the other.
Well, and India has been one of the victims of terror emanating from across the border, terror emanating from other parts of the world, and we have seen in the history, 80s, 90s, and you know the earliest or the last major terror attack that we could remember, it was in Bombay, as 26/11, and then also Pathankot. So many, the entirety, India has always been, positioning itself that there is some or any means of violence achieving a political goal is condemnable, and it should be condemned by all across the world without any, kind of having morality or any defensive policy. So the terrorism in all its form and manifestation is bad, and that should be condemned. That has been India's stand. So when the attack happened on Israeli, settlements where the people were kind of massacred, brutality and the ruthlessness of the militants that we have seen in the videos is appalling. And without having any time to wait, India issued a statement saying that India stands with Israel. India condemns all forms of terrorism. We know that India is not against the existence of Palestine, or India does care about the cause of Palestinian people. The Prime Minister while he had visited Israel, he had visited Palestine also. So that's the kind of support India has extended to Palestine as well. But the terrorism, that is the part that in fact becomes part of the state policy of even for the Palestinian side, then it is something that India would not support, it would condemn. And that is the clear message that government of India has given to the world that terrorism, no matter what, no matter where it's coming from, it is condemnable, and India will never take side on the issue, and it will always be supporting the victim. And currently, the victim is, of course, the Israel, the people of Israel who have suffered. The most in the sense that thousands of Israeli civilians have been killed, about 200 or so Israeli defense personnel have been killed, and that is unprecedented. That has not happened in the recent decades. I mean, for decades, nobody can remember if Israel had ever experienced such an onslaught or any experience of terrorism.
It's the worst since the Yom Kippur war that Israel has witnessed. Do stay on with me. We have former diplomat J.K. Tripathi also joining us here on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. You know, when we talk about the Israel-Palestine issue, who's the oppressor, who's the victim, that narrative changes depending on who you're speaking to. But as far as what we've witnessed on this weekend over the last 6 days, this is about a terror group, Hamas, attacking innocent civilians, attacking unarmed civilians, and that is what it should be. We shouldn't be afraid to call a spade, isn't it?
Sure, and that's what we have done. Though we have very good relationship with Palestine as well as with Israel, and we have already highlighted that our relation with one is not dependent on our relation with the other. They are quite dehyphenated. But this time, this was not Palestine. This was Hamas, which itself is a terrorist group. So we didn't shy away from calling that this is we're criticizing this terror attack on Israeli civil society, and we clearly, Prime Minister clearly stated that we are with Israel as regards this terror attack on Israeli people is concerned. So our policy has been quite clear. We distinguish between Hamas and Palestine. We know that Hamas is not Palestine. Hamas is a breakaway group which has control over Gaza State. So that's how we have reacted on it, and I think both sides have very well understood this.
Absolutely, that distinction has to be made, and it has been made as far as India is concerned. We do hope that many other countries who are still supporting what has happened over the last few days see the light of day. But Mr. Tripathi, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Former diplomat Ashok Sajjanhar also joining us here on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. You know, the stand that India has taken, there was criticism over how India was choosing one against the other with the unequivocal support that we had provided to Israel. But this is not about choosing Israel over Palestine or vice versa. This is about condemning terror in all its forms, and that's what it should be about.
You are absolutely right, and I think this is the viewpoint with which the Prime Minister twice in about 4 days he tweeted that we stand with Israel, with the people of Israel. We stand against terrorism. You know, India itself has been a victim of terrorism for not only many years, many decades, right from late 80s, early 90s. And we have lost so many people to the scourge of terrorism, whether it is 26/11, whether it's Pathankot, it is Uri, it is Pulwama, all of these innumerable number of the attack on our parliament. So it is natural, and we have been speaking against terror, against global terror, on all platforms in the world, wherever we have been, whether it is the United Nations, in the UN Security Council, in any of the multilateral, global, international, regional platforms, we have been speaking out against terror. So it was but natural that when there is an obvious and such a barbaric, inhumane treatment of people, it is of children, of women, how it has been done. It was but natural that the Prime Minister came out very clearly, unambiguously, openly in favor of Israel and because it is the victim of terror. So it is not conflating one with the other. Our position on the Israel-Palestine issue, because I think we also need to recognize that Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinian cause, and what it has done, it was not to advance the Palestinian cause. The only objective that Hamas has is to exterminate Jews and to destroy Israel so that, it stops existing from the face of
What their
the
charter
earth.
also says, it's clearly xenophobic material that Hamas is propagating. There are absolutely no two ways of looking at that. But Mr. Sajjanar, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. We do have to shift focus now to some more breaking news that's now coming in. And this is about the T20 summit that India is hosting. This is that of the parliamentary speakers that is being held of the G20 nations here in the national capital. We're given to understand now that the Speaker of Canada is not going to be attending this two-day event. The event is set to begin tomorrow. We had an introductory session took place today as well, where Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla was present. In that event today, the introductory event today, we did not have Canada's Speaker. He's also not going to be there tomorrow and day after, is what we're now learning. A confirmation coming to the fore from the Ministry of External Affairs.
Look, we invite all leaders, all countries to participate, and same was done for the Parliament 20 that is going on. Participation is their decision, and there are usually a number of factors that go into that. So I would request you to ask the Canadian side on it.
My colleague now joining us, getting us more details. Now, Siddhant, the MEA says we've invited all. It's their prerogative whether they want to attend or no. Do we have any reason, any rationale that has come to the fore from the Canadian side as to why they are missing this particular event?
No. So we had this information that there is nobody from Canada has come to participate in the ongoing P20 meeting, which is going on right now in New Delhi. So as per the protocol, and since the invitation was also extended on the name of the Speaker of the House, since it's the lawmakers' meeting of G20 nations, so as per the protocol, the Speaker has to come, or he has to send his deputy in case he's not available or he has some prior commitments. But we have been told that nobody has arrived from the Canada in terms of dignitaries. We still don't have a confirmation whether anyone from the High Commission here in New Delhi has attended, or perhaps some junior level diplomat has attended. We don't know about that. But one thing we can confirm for the viewers that the Speaker or his deputy has not come. And when this question was asked to MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi, he said that as a host country, it's our duty to invite the member nation. We did that. Now it's up to the member nation to decide whether they want to come, whether they want to join the meeting or not, actually.
Now, the timing of all of this is very suspect, isn't it? It comes a few days after the deadline lapsed for Canada to ensure that its diplomatic staff was cut down. It also comes at a time when India has been mounting pressure on Canada as far as taking action against pro-Khalistani elements is concerned.
Well, yes, that's absolutely right. And in fact, this cannot be seen in isolation because there is tension between the two countries with regard to the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. In fact, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar was in New York, in Washington, and in fact there have been efforts which are being given. In fact, both sides are talking at various levels, perhaps to de-escalate. But right now, the situation of a diplomatic standoff continues.
Right. Do keep a track of what the response from the Canadian side is. For the moment, though, Siddhant, thank you so much for getting us the latest. On that note, slipping into a quick break here on this edition of Nation at 5, but there's lots lined up for you on the other side. Do stay tuned.
We were on our way to Tel Aviv, and as you can see, sirens sounding.
ये सायरन बजा 30 सेकंड के अंदर हमें भागना होता है.
Massive barrage of rockets coming in here.
The sirens have gone off. People are taking cover. We got off the bus. People are taking cover.
Saturday's attack by Hamas marked the worst breach in Israel's defenses in decades. According to a Reuters source, Hamas deployed a force of about 1,000 fighters, organized into specialized units. They've been training in Gaza since the last conflict in 2021, sometimes in plain sight, the source said. Here's how they managed to catch Israel off guard. This footage released by the armed wing of Hamas is said to show fighters training ahead of the operation. They're using paragliders, and a source...
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5 with me, Poonam Burde, and there's now a political controversy that has erupted whether or not there is a GST that is going to be levied on water that comes out of Holy Ganga. Now, there is a controversy because Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge came out and put out this tweet. We have a clarification from the government as well, but first let me take you through what the allegation was. This is the tweet that Mallikarjun Kharge, the president of the Congress party, put out. He went on to say, and I quote him, "The importance of Mother Ganga, the provider of salvation for a common Indian from birth to death, is very high. It is good that you're in Uttarakhand today." He was taking a jibe at the Prime Minister, but your government has imposed an 18% GST on the Holy Ganga water itself. Not even once did I think that this would be a burden on those who order Ganga water in their homes. This is a height of plunder, is what the Congress alleged. Congress also going on to say that this was hypocrisy of the central government, of the Uttarakhand government, in fact. Then we had a clarification that came to the fore from the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. This is what they said, that whether or not to bring any items that are required for puja as far as the Hindu faith is concerned was discussed as part of GST meetings. It was discussed as part of the 14th and the 15th meetings of the GST Council, is what the clarification is. These meetings were held back in 2017. All of them are going to be in the exempt category, was the decision that was taken back then. That continues. They are exempt since the introduction of GST, is what the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs has now come out and clarified. Pallavi, my colleague, now joining us for more perspective on this. Now, Pallavi, the government has come out, the government body has come out and clarified that these items still remain exempt. Why exactly did we have the Congress president come out and allege this? What really is the source?
Well, behind this, the war of words which is taking place between the Congress party and the finance ministry and also the BJP actually rests the politics behind it. First of all, the dig coming in on the Prime Minister on a day when he was there, the Parvati Kund, he was on. We also know that the state elections are also going to be on the Hindutva agenda. So what essentially the Congress president was trying to do is stoke that controversy by saying that you're playing with the astha or the religious belief with a large number of Hindus in our country when you're imposing 18% GST on Ganga Jal, which is a part of Hindu's life right from birth to death. That's the kind of emotional quotient I think the Congress party is trying to play on, which is why it was immediately squashed first by Amit Malviya of the BJP, and second, that clarification coming in from the finance ministry making the point that there is no GST which has been applied. Of course, the Congress has already responded to it by an earlier notification of the CBIC's website and claimed that there is an 18% GST which is included in any online purchase of Ganga Jal. So, of course, behind this is completely deep-rooted politics, of course.
Right. Whether we see the debate laid to rest after this clarification or not, do keep a track of that. But for the moment, Pallavi, thank you so much for getting us the latest. We are shifting focus now to the unfortunate news that came to the fore this morning, and that was a rail accident which claimed 4 lives. Now we're learning from our sources within the Railways Ministry that they say that this accident possibly happened because of a fault on the track. We have, in fact, exclusive details that we've accessed of where the investigation is headed as far as this entire accident is concerned, that claimed over 4 lives and 30 or so people have been injured. Akash, my colleague, now joining us to get us more details on this. Akash, what else have you gathered from your sources within the ministry?
Right. So, Poonam, you see, when we talk about joint notes, so it is basically the preliminary inquiry, and this is normally conducted by officials of several departments. Now, what we are hearing, in fact, from the officials and what we have in this particular note, so this note basically talks about several sort of statements that are by the loco pilot, assistant loco pilot, and also the gateman. And they people are saying that initially, 8 to 10 coaches passed normally, and after that they heard a loud noise, and then derailment happened. Now, initially, after this particular, inquiry, officers are saying that there is a possibility of fault within the track. Now, engineering department of railways maintain these tracks, and whenever we talk about any sort of fault in track, that means engineering department is in question. We know that a detailed investigation will lead us as to what actually happened or if it was intentional. But as of now, railway officers are saying that there is in fact a possibility of some sort of fault in the track, because of which this derailment happened, where we lost 4 lives and in fact 30 people are injured as well.
Right, the operations have concluded. We're back on track, so to say, as far as that particular area is concerned. But Akash, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. CNN News 18 was at the spot where the derailment took place to take stock of what exactly happened. Take a look at this report.
Major accident took place yesterday night at around 9:53 p.m. when Northeast Express 12506 derailed at Raghunathpur railway station here in Bihar. The 23 coaches train derailed completely and at least 6 coaches overturned and fell on track. Now the sad part is that 4 persons in this accident died and more than 80 are injured. They have been shifted to the local PHC and different hospitals in Ara and Buxar. Some of them who are critically injured have been taken to Patna, and the critical patients are being taken care of at Patna Medical College and Hospital. Now the rescue operation has been going on since night, and NDRF, SDRF, police officials and railway officials are conducting the rescue operations. And now the biggest challenge here is to clear the tracks, because already at least more than half a dozen trains have been cancelled, and and several trains have been diverted from different routes. And the administration must answer as to what led to this accident, because this is the second accident just after 4 months when the Balasore train accident took place.
दुर्घटना हुआ है, उसके लिए तो समाचार जैसे ही पता चला है, रात में सब लोगों ने वहां पर काम किया है। 4 का डेथ हो गया, 1 का रिश्ता यहाँ का है, बिहार वालों से लेकर बाहर का, और हम सब लोगों को मदद करने वाले हैं। आप जान लीजिए, हम सबको, उसके परिवार को 4-4 लाख देंगे, और जितने भी इंजर्ड हैं उन सब लोगों के लिए भी हम लोग 50,000 रुपया देने वाले हैं। अब बहुत दुखद है, उसके लिए जितना भी काम हालांकि है तो उनका घापन है, रेल का मामला है, लेकिन फिर भी जैसे ही पता चला है, रात में ही सारे अधिकारी जगह रहे, हमको भी सूचना दे दिया था और एक तरह से देख लिया है। तो दुख की बात है, जो घटना जो भी घटी है, लेकिन राज्य सरकार की तरफ से भी सबको पूरा तरफ से कोऑपरेट किया है, सहयोग।
Mr. Pathak, please tell us this tragic incident that happened last night.
Yesterday, maybe at 9 to 9:45 p.m., we heard a hard noise, and the electricity has gone. And after that, the local villagers has escaped us from the train.
So the locals here played a very vital role.
Yeah. We are so much thankful for them.
4 months back also in Balasore we saw so many people died, and now after 4 months this incident happened. What would you like to tell the government about it? The railways?
The government should take necessary actions for that.
And
that's
more safety measures.
Should take safety measures also.
पीछे डब्बा में थे, और जब एक्सीडेंट हुआ तो इस टाइप का प्रदर्शित हुआ, जैसे लगा कि भूकंप टाइप से आ गया, और गाड़ी आगे जाने की बजाय पीछे की तरफ जाने लगी। तो हमारे साथ जो बैठे लोग थे, जब झटका लगा तो लोग इधर से उधर लड़ना शुरू कर दिए।
हम तो ऊपर सोए हुए थे, अब अचानक कंपन टाइप का होने लगा, और धीरे धीरे मतलब ट्रेन लगा कि मतलब एक तरफा गिरने लगा। उसके बाद मैं भी गिरा ऊपर से, ऊपर में सोया था, गिरा नीचे धड़ाम से न गिरा, फिर ट्रेन रुकी।
ट्रेन शायद पटरी से उतर गई, फिर देखा उतर के तो ऐसा ही हुआ। बहुत सारे कैजुअलिटीज़ भी सुनने में आया है, चोट भी बहुत लोगों को लगा।
कामाख्या जा रही ट्रेन जो है बक्सर के पास जो है दुर्घटनाग्रस्त हुई है, और हमारी सभी अधिकारियों से बातचीत हुई है, चाहे दोनों जिला के डीएम हों, स्वास्थ्य विभाग के सभी अधिकारी हों, आपदा विभाग के अधिकारी हों, सारे हॉस्पिटल से लेके चाहे बक्सर का हो, आरा का हो या पटना के आईजीएमएस हो या एम्स हो, सभी जगह जो है अलर्ट पे जारी कर दिया गया है और मोबिलाइज जो है चाहे सिक्योरिटी फोर्स जो हो मदद के लिए एसडीआरएफ, एनडीआरएफ सभी को जो है लगा दिया गया है। हमारी प्राथमिकता है कि हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा जो है लोगों की जान को सुरक्षा करें और लोगों को बचाना और इलाज कराना, ये हमारी प्राथमिकता है ताकि जो लोग फंसे हैं उनको जल्द से जल्द जो है निकाला जाए। इस कार्य में हम सब लोग लगे हुए हैं और एक एक नजर हम लोगों के पास है और हेल्पलाइन नंबर भी जो है वो रिलीज कर दिया गया है।
यकीनन ये बहुत ही दुखद घटना है और सबसे पहले तो मृतक भगवान उनकी आत्मा को शांति दे, उनके परिवार वालों को हिम्मत दे इस दुख की घड़ी का सामना करने की, और जितने घायल हैं उनके जल्द स्वस्थ होने की मैं कामना करता हूं। और साथ ही मैं ये विश्वास करता हूं कि रेलवे प्रशासन जल्द से जल्द इसकी जांच करके और जो भी दोषी हैं जिनकी भी लापरवाही की वजह से हो या किसी भी कारण की वजह से हो, जिस तरीके से ये बोगियां रेल की पटरी से उतरी हैं उसकी जांच करवा के दोषियों पर कार्रवाई करे ताकि भविष्य में कभी ऐसी घटना दोबारा ना घटे।
लोगों को काफी दिक्कतें हो रही हैं और पीएमसीएच में भी लोगों को भेजा जा रहा है। कहा जा रहा है
मैंने अस्पताल के अंदर सारे हमने तहकीकात किया है, सभी अस्पतालों में लोग कुशल हैं, अस्पताल में इलाज चल रहा है, सब प्रकार की चिकित्सा व्यवस्था हो रही है।
कितने लोग अभी तक इंजर्ड हैं, क्या कुछ फिगर मिला है?
मेजर इंजर्ड 8 लोग एम्स में हैं और वही मतलब सभी जगहों पर जो 22-23 लोग वहाँ हैं बाहर में, कुछ आरा हॉस्पिटल में, लेकिन सभी एक तरह से हम कह सकते हैं कि खतरे से खाली है।
तो फिर से एक सवाल खड़ा होता है सेफ्टी को लेके, बालासोर के बाद फिर ये 4 महीने में दूसरा एक्सीडेंट हो गया है।
देखिए घटना घटी है, ये दुखद है, इसकी जांच हो रही है।
जो जिनकी मृत्यु हुई है उनके लिए क्या क्या हो रहा है?
ये दुखद है, उनके हर प्रकार की मुआवजा जो रेल का है वो देंगे, हर प्रकार की व्यवस्था हो रही है।
But that it's time for a quick break here on this edition of Nation at 5, but lots lined up for you on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Included building a mock Israeli settlement to practice a military landing. Reuters could not verify the date and locations of the videos, but the training would have come amid a careful campaign of deception by Hamas, which had convinced Israel that it did not want to fight. It refrained from military operations against Israel and was careful about leaks. Even many Hamas leaders weren't aware of the plans, according to the Reuters source. A spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces admits they were surprised. Hamas separated its fighters into several specialized groups to carry out the attack in the air and on the ground. It fired thousands of rockets at around 6:30 a.m. on Saturday. The bombardment was intended to cause shock and confusion, while providing Hamas fighters with cover to break the fortified fence surrounding Gaza. Teams of fighters on hang gliders, or motorized paragliders, flew over the border and secured terrain for the main ground assault. A 400-strong elite force on the ground attacked the fortified Gaza fence. Videos issued by Hamas are said to show fighters breaching the security fences. It also released video of drones it says it used for border surveillance. The final part involved moving hostages to Gaza, mostly achieved early in the attack, a source close to Hamas said. In one well-publicized hostage-taking, fighters abducted partygoers fleeing a rave near the kibbutz of Re'im near Gaza. One analyst told Reuters that Hamas probably succeeded beyond their expectation, But now they'll have to, quote, deal with an Israel determined to decimate them.
רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
يصدر من رعيم باتجاه قطاع غزة. ها هم جنودنا الذين أثخنوا في عدونا.
As the conflict in Israel continues, there are many foreign nationals that are stranded, but India has begun the repatriation process under Operation Ajay. The first flight, in fact, is en route Tel Aviv. The first batch of Indians who want to be evacuated from the conflict zone will be arriving in India tomorrow. Ridhima Bhatnagar, my colleague, joining us to get us more details of what exactly is the plan of action as far as the Operation Ajay is concerned. Ridhima, over to you.
Poonam, so these are some exclusive details that we are picking up in terms of what the government's plan is under Operation Ajay. Now, this operation, in fact, was announced by the External Affairs Minister yesterday on social media. This is a repatriation process to get Indians who are interested to leave the conflict zone. Now, this is the plan that we're picking up by means of sources. As you rightly pointed out, the first flight under Operation Ajay is already en route to Tel Aviv. I'm understanding that this will now land post-7 local time in Israel. What we're also understanding is that the crew of the flight, in fact, is now prepared for any consequences, any situation. So this is how they're preparing themselves. There are two sets of crew that are en route to Tel Aviv currently. What this essentially means is that the crew from Delhi to Israel will not be the same from Israel to Delhi. This will ensure two things. One, that there is no fatigue for the crew on board. And secondly, that there is no need for a layover for the crew. In fact, all of them will come back in that same first flight. What we're also now picking up is that this flight, in fact, is carrying extra pilots, technicians, and engineers, as we pointed out, to fight any consequence on ground. What we're also picking up exclusively is that the flights in the first phase will be operational till the 18th of this month. The government has already confirmed that there are 18,000 Indians that are currently in Israel, and they will take a call post-18th if there are other Indians interested to have more repatriation flights. So these are details that we're picking up. The first flight lands in Tel Aviv post 7 o'clock local time. The flying time back to India is about 7 hours. And then we'll have the first set of Indians who would have touched Indian soil in that repatriation flight.
Right, Ridhima, thank you so much for getting us those exclusive details. Of course, the families of those in Israel are awaiting their arrival tomorrow. The first batch arrives tomorrow. We are shifting focus now to the other story that we're tracking here on Nation at 5, and that is the 141st IOC session that is going to be hosted here in Mumbai. We're given to understand that a key meeting was held today before that summit begins over this weekend. IOC's president, in fact, praised Reliance Foundation for its values, going on to talk about how it's going to be an important addition as far as the future for Olympics is concerned. Whether it is time for cricket to be included in Olympics as well. We spoke to some of the sports stars. Listening.
I had a visit there together with our IOC colleague and friend Nita Ambani to their Reliance Foundation and the programs they're offering there to the kids and youth, and they are being offered their education, school, but at the same time given the opportunity to train and to prepare for becoming an athlete, and the high-level athlete. This is something what is exactly reflecting our Olympic values and our approach.
ओलंपिक की अगर बात करें तो आपने ओलंपिक मूवमेंट के लिए, ओलंपिक स्पोर्ट्स के लिए इंडिया में बहुत किया है. आपके गोल्ड मेडल से जो ओलंपिक स्पोर्ट्स को बढ़ावा मिला है. अब मुंबई में आईओसी का सेशन होने वाला है. आपको कैसा लगता है कि वो सेशन इंडिया में होना और उसमें ओलंपिक मूवमेंट को इंडिया में लाना, उससे और क्या फायदा हो सकता है इंडिया को?
बिल्कुल, देखो कहीं ना कहीं बहुत बड़ी बात है कि आईओसी सेशन इंडिया में होना और इतने बड़ी बड़ी पर्सनैलिटीज आएंगी स्पोर्ट्स की, और आगे स्पोर्ट्स के लिए और बातें होंगी इंडिया के स्पोर्ट्स के लिए. और मुझे लगता है कि ये चीज हेल्प करेगी इंडिया को ग्लोबली दिखाने में, या कितनी कैपेबिलिटी है इंडिया के अंदर, या क्या कर सकते हैं हम. तो वो शायद लोगों को दिखेगा और बहुत हेल्पफुल होने वाला है ये.
क्योंकि इंडिया टारगेट कर रहा है कि 2036 तक वो भी ओलंपिक्स के लिए बिड करे. आपको लगता है कि ये हम शोकेस कर सकते हैं कि इंडिया में ओलंपिक्स हो सकता है जल्द?
बिल्कुल जी, दिखा सकते हैं. जिस तरीके से हमने पहले भी गेम्स करवाए हैं, एशियन गेम्स या कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स, और जिस तरीके से बोलते हैं काफी अच्छे हुए हैं, तो हो सकता है. और मैं यही आशा करता हूं कि ऐसा हो और हम देख पाए इंडिया में ओलंपिक्स होते हुए. ये भी मेरा एक ड्रीम है, तो बहुत अच्छा लगेगा. और सबसे अच्छी बात होगी कि इंडिया के अंदर और हमारे एथलीट्स की वजह से वो मेडल टैली बहुत ऊपर हो।
नीरज ने वर्चुअली सारे मेडल्स जीते हुए हैं। उन्होंने ऑब्वियसली वर्ल्ड चैंपियनशिप का मेडल जीत लिया है, ओलंपिक्स का जीता था, एशियन गेम्स में वो जीत चुके हैं, कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स में वो जीत चुके हैं। ओलंपिक्स की अगर बात करें तो आईओसी सेशन अभी मुंबई में होने वाला है और उसको लेके बहुत बज़ है और ये हमारे लिए एक बहुत अच्छा मौका होगा ये दिखाने के लिए कि हम भी आगे जाके ओलंपिक्स होस्ट कर सकते हैं। आपको लगता है?
Why not? I think we have all the means, and I'm sure the way our infrastructure is going, we can definitely host Olympics in the coming years. Why not?
And one question I really wanted to ask you was that as a cricketer, how do you feel about cricket, being one of those sports that could make a re-entry into the Olympics? How would that be for you?
Well, that should have been done a couple of years ago. I don't know why it's happened now, but it's great if that can happen. And soon India will be a big contender to win Olympic gold in cricket.
With that, it's a wrap from my side here on this edition of Nation at 5. Plain Speak coming up next.
Tel Aviv, and as you can see, sirens sounding.
क्या सही है? सायरन बजा 30 सेकंड के अंदर हमें भागना होता है।
Massive barrage of rockets coming in here.
The sirens have gone off. People are taking cover. We got off the bus. People are taking cover.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The massacres of kibbutz Kafra Aza and Be'eri have shocked the global conscience. In Be'eri, a community which was situated just about 5 kilometers away from the Gaza border, people were massacred after a surprise attack by Hamas terrorists and infiltrators. The Israeli military claims that Hamas terrorists stormed the houses of the people in Be'eri and butchered over 100 people there. Similarly, in Kafra Aza, as many as 40 children, many babies, are the ones reportedly killed in one of the most brutal fashions along with their families, many of them burned alive. The attack allegedly involved the use of guns, grenades and knives against civilians in their homes. Kafar Aza, once a peaceful community, is now marked by soccer nets strewn on lawns, abandoned strollers and damaged sidewalks and houses after they were burnt and residents were compelled to flee. Even today, Hamas terrorists unleashed a volley of rockets towards Tel Aviv as a response to the Israeli airstrikes. The Israelis, on the other hand, have vowed to further escalate the situation. The preparations are in full swing. Tanks are being mobilized near the Gaza Strip. It has already been declared, most of it, as a militarized zone. A ground operation is coming up next. The International Committee of the Red Cross is in contact with Hamas and Israel to try and facilitate the release of hostages taken into Gaza. Meanwhile, we've also heard of some reports of efforts being made behind the scenes to also ensure that civilians can be taken out of the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, UK's Defence Minister James Cleverly and US's Secretary of State Antony Blinken are in Tel Aviv and have assured their full support to Israel. But the most shocking aspect of what has transpired in Israel and around the world over the last 5 days or so is this. We live in a world, shockingly, where some are either drawing false equivalences or making excuses for Hamas's unimagined brutality and unspeakable barbarity. The butchers of babies are being defended by some today in open. Had there not been images that showed us exactly what Hamas did to civilians, women, elderly and babies, and many of these images uploaded by them themselves, there are enough apologists who would have washed these crimes off, just like they're unwilling to believe the barbarities that are yet not out by way of videos or images. Can there be any defense of these butchers, and what should be done with those who defend such crimes by contextualizing them? We'll take that question to our guest joining us in just a bit. But first, let's take a look at what exactly happened as far as Kafr Aza is concerned. This is one of those kibbutz which has come under the most brutal attack as far as the Hamas terror attack is concerned. So houses in this kibbutz were ransacked and then set ablaze. The IDF, which is the Israeli force, has claimed that children were butchered in an ISIS way of action. The IDF has also added that Hamas terrorists left an ISIS flag at the massacre site. It's interesting that this has come out because in one of the protests that took place in Sydney, Australia, for a pro-Palestine cause, also had flags of terror groups like the ISIS and Al-Qaeda. But speaking about Kafr Aza and the massacre there, over 100 people, including 40 kids, have reportedly been slaughtered by the Hamas. The Israeli military had earlier claimed that kids were beheaded, which had really shocked the world. As of now, though, we are still waiting for an official confirmation from the Israeli government. But this is also something interesting that happened earlier today. US President Joe Biden spoke about this issue and he said, and I quote, "I never thought I would see such things." He talked about the massacres that took place in Israel and he went on to say, "Have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children." He went on to add, downplaying Hamas's atrocities and blaming Jews is unthinkable. Of course, this was the right message to come from the US President, a message that will go a long way in making sure that Jews are not further isolated and marginalized. But here's the catch. Soon after Joe Biden made that statement, White House came out to clarify that Biden has not actually seen the pictures or confirmed reports independently of young babies being beheaded. His comments, the White House says, are based on Israel's claims and the Israeli media reports.